In 2017 alone, 422,000 more Canadians got jobs. That's the best job creation in a single year, Mr. Speaker, since 2002. And I see that you're giving me the sign to conclude for the moment. And with that, I take a seat, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary will have 3 minutes when the House next debates this question. Déclaration de député, statements by members. The Honourable Member for Kingston and the Islands.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to celebrate the life of an outstanding individual, Alex Lampropoulos. Born in Greece, Alex moved to Kingston in 1962 and wholly gave himself to his community. In addition to being a teacher, he thrived in the political scene in Kingston during his time as a city alderman in the 1970s and 80s. As a matter of fact, Mr. Speaker, Alex almost made it to this place. In a heated nomination battle in 1988, Alex was the favoured candidate to represent the Liberal Party of Canada in the upcoming election. But when the dust settled and the votes were counted, he was just narrowly beat by a relatively unknown Kingstonian who went on to sit in your chair for many years. Indeed, Mr. Speaker, this place missed the opportunity to grace itself with Alex's personality and boisterous greetings. But Ottawa's loss was Kingston's gain. Alex went on to continuing his community building locally. I remember him fondly as a man with a big smile and positive outlook. His contribution to our community will never be forgotten, and I hope you will join me in celebrating the life of Alex Lampropoulos.
The Honourable Member for Durham.
Mr. Speaker, we are 3 days away from the opening ceremonies of the Winter Olympics in Pyeongchang, and Canada's getting excited. In the Durham region, we're very proud of our athletes that will be wearing the colours of Canada. In hockey, Chris Kelly from Bowmanville, a father of 3, will be wrapping up a stellar hockey career wearing Canada's colours. Pickering's Jennifer Wakefield will be wearing a jersey in the women's hockey team as they go to bring home another gold for Canada. Ben Donnelly from Oshawa will keep up that speed on the ice when he competes for Canada in long track team pursuit. And Cam Stone will hurdle down an icy track when he competes for Team Canada in bobsleigh. Mr. Speaker, we're excited because 224 men and women from our country will be wearing the maple leaf and doing us proud, the largest Winter Olympic team we've ever sent. Congratulations to those Canadians for your hard work, and thank you to the parents, coaches, and communities that have supported you on your journey. I know I speak for all of us when we say, "Go Canada, go!"
The Honourable Member for Shefford. Granby's CEGEP is celebrating its 50th anniversary this year, Mr. Speaker. From 300 students when it opened, the CEGEP now has more than 2,000 students. Over the years, the school taught students who became well-known members of Canadian society, including the late and lamented Jean Lapierre. With its National School of Song, the CEGEP also taught many francophone songwriters throughout the entire country, such as Damien Rabitaille from Ontario, Geneviève Toupin from Manitoba, Alex Nevsky from Quebec, and Lisa LeBlanc from New Brunswick. As a graduate of this prominent school, I can certainly attest to the quality of the professorship. I would like to highlight the commitment of the President of the Board of Directors and the General Director, Serge Striganuk and Ivan O'Connor. Their overarching vision made Granby CEGEP a learning institution that is in sync with the needs of its community. And so, I wish Granby CEGEP a lovely anniversary celebration. The Honourable Member for Rosemont-Patrie. This matter goes beyond partisan divisions. This is part of our common responsibility. I'm talking about climate change. During the Conservatives' era, we pretended that climate change didn't exist. Today, it is recognized that it does exist, but we're sadly betting on appearances over real action. According to the IPCC scientists, it is still barely possible to avoid global warming of over 2 degrees Celsius, which would have irremediable and dramatic consequences. The public is clear. Fighting climate change is urgent, and we must do better. I launched a consultation and I received hundreds of ideas to fight climate change on a global scale. These solutions could be implemented immediately at the local and federal levels, and they would have an impact around the world. As the new NDP critic for the environment, you can count on me and our entire team to make sure that these ideas are heard and, above all, that they are implemented.
Honourable member for Central Nova.
Mr. Speaker, this summer the Special Olympics are coming to Antigonish, Nova Scotia. This is only the second time in the history of our province that the National Games are coming, and it's the first time in almost a quarter century. Now, we're long overdue, but I can't tell you how excited I am to show the entire country some world-famous East Coast hospitality. We expect to welcome over 3,000 spectators to experience the Games, along with over 900 athletes, 600 volunteers, and almost 300 officials, coaches, and staff. So many people are coming to the town of Antigonish that it is going to double its size while the Games are in town. Now, there's a lot of ways you can get involved in this phenomenal national event, and if you want to participate or volunteer, I encourage you to get in touch with your provincial Special Olympics chapter. Come to Antigonish, cheer on your athletes, and let the Games begin.
The honourable member for Calgary-Midnapore.
Mr. Speaker, Canada has seen numerous pipeline projects dissolve in the last year, including TransCanada's Energy East Pipeline, the Mackenzie Valley, and the Northwest LNG project. This lack of pipeline capacity severely hinders Alberta and getting our natural resources to market, with the latest atrocity being this Liberal government's inability to move beyond words to action and to stand up for all energy citizens with the enforcement of the Trans Mountain Pipeline. Calgary-Midnapore is a riding that was built on the abundance of the land to provide plentiful and bountiful energy for all citizens of Canada, a legacy that I am proud to represent and advocate for in this House. And we will not accept the weak claims of this Liberal government that they provide for and believe in our natural resources sector when in reality they do nothing.
Yes.
Honourable member for Hamilton Stony Creek.
Mr. Speaker, it is my sad duty, but honor as well, to share with this House the passing of one of Hamilton's and indeed Canada's great mayors, Robert Bob Morrow. Starting in 1982, Bob won 6 straight elections for a total of 18 years of service as mayor. Bob and I shared a love as politicians for the city and as performers a love of music. And my last visit with Bob was in the organ loft of St. Patrick's Church at the Christmas concert where Bob played the organ and conducted the choir. The impact that he had on residents was so strong and enduring that on several occasions, 10 years after he was mayor and I was now the mayor, I was introduced many times as the mayor of Hamilton, Bob Morrow, which I take as a compliment. He was beloved by all segments of our diverse city and a model to all of us in public life in how to relate to your community.
The honourable member for Rivière-des-Mille-Îles. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today, I invite everyone to attend the 43rd Provincial Bantam Tournament in Saint-Eustache from February 4th to 11th. Over 2,000 13 to 14-year-old players will play over 108 games. 64 teams, including AA, B, A, and B teams from all over Quebec will be in Saint-Eustache at the Walter Buswell Complex. The final game will be on next Sunday, February 11th. I encourage the players from my riding to give all of their best, but I would also like to thank the president of the tournament, Mr. Jean Charest, and Ms. Tardif, who is the honorary president. I would like to thank the parents for always being present for their kids. You know, Mr. Speaker, in sport, we learn about life, obstacles, defeat, joy, how to win, about adversity, and how to improve ourselves. I look forward to seeing you there. I wish them great success. Thank you.
Member for Calgary Nose Hill.
Mr. Speaker, today is the International Day of Zero Tolerance for Female Genital Mutilation. More than 200 women and girls worldwide have undergone this procedure and live with its effects. It's easy for us, Mr. Speaker, to say that this is a problem that only happens abroad and put our focus there. But the reality is that there are many women in Canada who live with this and girls who are at risk. So today, I would like to thank the women in Canada who have come forward to share their stories and ask for change. And I call upon the government and the members of the Liberal caucus to encourage the government to do 2 things. Ensure that practitioners of female genital mutilation do not enter our country, and help protect girls that are being taken abroad from Canada, Canadian girls, to have this procedure practiced against them. Together we can educate, dispel myths, and end this practice once and for all.
Honourable Member for West Vancouver, Sunshine Coast, Sea to Sky Country.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. At the end of January in our constituency office in Horseshoe Bay, West Vancouver, we had the most lovely gathering of people who were nominated by their friends and neighbours to receive a Canada 150 pin for emulating what it is to be Canadian. They are Buddy, conservationist; Jane, artist; Coyote, healer; Diane, nature lover; Susan, Canada's West; Rick, CBC's early edition; 7-year-olds Jonathan and Quinn, generosity; Vicky, human rights; Birdie, citizenship; Terry, Métis culture; Margie, selflessness; Manu, diversity; Michael, gratitude; Catherine, inclusivity; Bill, civic engagement; Anne, volunteerism; Chris, kindness; Jerry, connecting us. Congratulations, you are shining lights. On behalf of each and every member of Parliament, we salute you, and we salute Canada 150.
Hear, hear. The honourable member for Pitt Meadows, Maple Ridge.
Mr. Speaker, every February, Canadians participate in Black History Month, reflecting on the stories, experiences, and accomplishments of Black Canadians. This year, we give focus to all of the strong Black women that are the backbone of our communities. Lolo Linda Doze from my riding of Pitt Meadows Maple Ridge is one of these women. Lolo holds the personal conviction that if she wants to do it, she puts her mind to it, and she does it. It is this motto that drove Lolo to follow her dream and host a forum called Afro Gala to recognize the different individuals that volunteer in our various communities and elevate the lives for people in need. On February 10th, Lolo and her husband Onyeka are hosting the 7th annual Grassroots Events Afro Gala. The vision is to connect across racial, cultural divisions in order to develop friendships and community cohesion. It is a night of food, culture, and entertainment. In Lola's own words, real change comes from people. Mr. Speaker, we can certainly agree with her.
Honourable member for Souris, Moose Mountain.
Mr. Speaker, February marks Jewish Disability Awareness and Inclusion Month, a unified effort among Jewish organizations and communities worldwide to raise awareness, champion the rights, and foster inclusion for people with disabilities. This initiative, which began in 2009, highlights the importance of accommodation and inclusion for people with disabilities within Jewish communal life and provides a focal point for Jewish Canadians to demonstrate leadership. I am proud to welcome a delegation to Ottawa, led by the Jewish Federations of Canada, UIA, and the Center for Israel and Jewish Affairs, representing Jewish federations, service agencies, activists, and parents from across Canada. This group is here to promote the breakdown of barriers and the advancement of inclusion and accommodation for individuals with disabilities and their families. This is an incredible initiative which is being coordinated both here and in Washington, D.C. As Deputy Shadow Minister for Persons with Disabilities, I thank them for their important work in representing disabled Canadians across the country.
Honourable member for Kitchener Centre.
Mr. Speaker, this week is an opportunity to bring people of all ages from across Canada together to celebrate and discuss our development achievements. Cette semaine est la semaine.
This week is International Development Week.
In our government's efforts to tackle poverty and inequality is education.
Access to quality basic education improves the lives of young people and gives them a real and fair chance to succeed and develop their potential.
Canada announced a pledge of $180 million to the Global Partnership for Education, which will strengthen education systems in developing countries and provide support for girls' education.
Throughout the entire week, we should highlight Canada's work by using the hashtag IDW2018. Happy International Development Week.
L'honorable député.
The Honourable Member for Laurier-Sainte-Marie. Mr. Speaker, today I wish to pay tribute to Father Emmett Johns, known as Pops, who left us on January 13th at the age of 89. Born in 1928 of Irish parents, he grew up in the Plateau, Montreal, which is now Laurier-Sainte-Marie. A priest for 40 years, at age 60, Pops, decided to reach out to homeless youth and found Le Bon Dieu dans la rue, the good Lord on the street. He borrowed money to buy a trailer and rolled through the streets of downtown every night to help young homeless people, to let them eat and warm up without ever judging them. Today, the organization Dans la Rue, or In the Street, includes 65 employees, 135 volunteers, and is the symbol of the devotion, empathy, and respect of its founder. A great figure of solidarity and compassion has left us, an admirable man whom we must honor by continuing his work. Thank you.
Honorable member for Carlton Trail, Eagle Creek.
Mr. Speaker, the mark of a free society is the ability of its members to hold and express opinions with which the government disagrees. The Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms was drafted and adopted with this in mind. Pierre Trudeau marked the importance of freedom of conscience and belief by listing these freedoms at the very beginning of the Charter, under the heading Fundamental Freedoms. In so doing, he sought to affirm for future generations the absolute importance of those freedoms. It seems that the son has forgotten the lessons of the father. This Prime Minister has introduced a values test for Canadians applying for the Canada Summer Jobs Program. The value test isn't about the activities or services an organization provides, but rather about targeting the personal beliefs of the individuals who run those organizations. The attestation is an insidious breach of the Charter, and it must be removed.
The honourable member for Scarborough Rouge Park.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As we celebrate Black History Month and the achievements of Black Canadians, we must reflect on the enormous work that lies ahead. Our Prime Minister acknowledged the need to address anti-Black racism and discrimination, an issue that has systematically limited generations of Black Canadians from reaching their fullest potential. This is in part why our government signed on to the International Decade for People of African Descent. In Scarborough Rouge Park, we will mark the occasion by honoring a trailblazer and fierce advocate for the educational and social equity of racialized people, Bev Salmon. Ms. Salmon became the first Black woman to serve as City Councillor in North York and then as Metro Councillor. She advocated for Black history to be included in our curriculum and served as the first Black woman at the Ontario Human Rights Commission. For her exemplary service in our community, Ms. Salmon will receive the Order of Canada. She has fought against racism, inspired a generation of leaders, and made our country a better place. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Questions orales, oral questions. L'honorable chef de l'opposition.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition. Mr. Speaker, the Ethics Commissioner's report came out over a month ago, and the Prime Minister is refusing to admit the obvious. When you commit an illegal act, you need to take responsibility for it. In this case, the Prime Minister took taxpayers' money to pay for an illegal trip. So the consequence is simple. He needs to pay back Canadian taxpayers. Everyone understands this except the Prime Minister. When will he finally understand? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, as soon as the Ethics Commissioner made her report public, I accepted it, I took full responsibility for it, and I accepted all of the advice and recommendations that the Commissioner made. We are following all of those recommendations and all of the Commissioner's advice. That's what Canadians expect.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Accepting responsibility means accepting consequences, Mr. Speaker. Now, we all know this Prime Minister loves him some luxury vacations in the Caribbean, and he doesn't mind sticking the cost to taxpayers. He constantly tells Canadians that they have to pick up the tab for his luxurious travel. And when that travel is deemed to be illegal, Mr. Speaker, he should pay Canadians back. When will he?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr.
Speaker, Canadians know that wherever the Prime Minister travels, there are operational security costs that go with it. What I can repeat, Mr. Speaker, is that when the Commissioner put forward her report, we fully assumed responsibility. I took personal responsibility and pledged to follow all the advice, all the recommendations laid out by the Ethics Commissioner. That is exactly what we were doing. Going forward, we will ensure that any personal vacation or family travel is worked through beforehand with the Ethics Commissioner, and we will continue to follow all her advice and recommendations in these and all matters.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
The fact that it would take an ethics commissioner's report pointing out to him that it's inappropriate to take a gift from someone who conducts business with the government, that it's inappropriate to take a free flight from someone who's doing business with the government, the fact that it took him a year to disclose these facts shows what a tremendous lapse of judgment he is also guilty of, Mr. Speaker. Now, our motion simply states that when members of Parliament or ministers are found to have burdened the taxpayer with costs associated with illegal activities, that they should reimburse the taxpayer. What part of that motion does he disagree with?
Good Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, in this place, in our system, it is the role of the opposition to ask tough questions, to challenge the government in place. That's what leads to a strong democracy. However, above the partisan attacks and the personal mudslinging, we have a system where an ethics commissioner objectively looks at behavior and makes recommendations and delivers consequences. In this case, above the partisan role that they are importantly playing, we need to make sure we are following the Ethics Commissioner's advice. That is exactly what I am doing.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Say that the Prime Minister thinks that by breaking the fourth wall and trying to escape the tough questions that we're actually asking, that he'll in some way be able to skate through this. But Canadians see right through that. Yes, it's our job to ask the tough questions, Mr. Speaker, and it's his habit to evade those questions and ask other ministers to defend his illegal activity. So here's a simple question. When other ministers were found to have broken the rules, they had to pay the money back. Why does he think he doesn't have to?
Once again, above the partisan attacks and the mudslinging, we have an ethics commissioner whose work on this side of the House we respect. The ethics commissioner made findings that we immediately accepted and I took responsibility for, and she made recommendations and gave advice that we are following entirely and completely. The members opposite are trying to play personal attacks on top of that, but Canadians can be assured that the Ethics Commissioner is the one that objectively looks at this above the partisan fray.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Demanding that a public official repay taxpayers for illegal costs is not a partisan issue. It is a fundamental principle of accountability. Anyone else in the real world, Mr. Speaker, who was found breaking the rules would have to accept consequences. Why does he think that he's different from everybody else?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, everyone in this House is accountable to Canadians and also has an ethics and conflict of interest commissioner that ensures that every member of this House, up to and including the Prime Minister, does is aligned with the rules. When that is not the case, the ethics commissioner makes findings, and in this case, we fully accepted responsibility. I took personal responsibility for the ethics commissioner's report and follow all her recommendations and all the advice she gave going forward.
The Honourable Member for Rimouski-Neja, Timisco-Telebas. Mr. Speaker, when you ask why giants like Netflix, Google and Facebook don't pay sales tax, which is required for their Canadian competitors, well, the Prime Minister says that he promised that he wouldn't increase taxes on the middle class. But let's talk about taxes that already exist. The sales tax, for example. We want tax fairness in this industry. It's not normal that the Prime Minister doesn't have the courage to ask these web giants to pay their fair share. So when will he finally understand and require that there be tax fairness for the whole industry? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Once again, Mr. Speaker, the NDP said it. Web giants need to pay their fair share. It's not the web giants they want to charge. They want to make taxpayers pay more. They want to tax Canadians more. Canadian and Quebec taxpayers are going to be taxed more to pay for their ideas. On this side of the House, we promised that we would not increase taxes on taxpayers, and we won't. If the NDP wants to, then they should say so instead of hiding behind these words about big companies. The Honourable Member for Rimouski-Neigette-Témiscouata-Les-Basques. We haven't been talking about new taxes. We're talking about taxes that exist now that are imposed on Canadian companies. Here's an example, Mr. Speaker. France, Australia, UK, many companies decided to charge these web giants. But even in Quebec, we're trying to do the same. It would be unthinkable to exempt Boeing from taxes that are imposed on Bombardier. So why is this being done in the web industry? The Prime Minister is not only trying to defend this, but he's making deals with these web giants. So when will the Liberals stop playing with these dangerous games with web giants? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Once again, Mr. Speaker, they are misleading Canadians. They're talking about charging web giants and making them pay their fair share, but it's not the web giants that they're going to be taxing further. It's taxpayers. We committed to not making taxpayers pay more for their online services. And on this side of the House, we are going to keep that promise.
Honourable Member for Timmins, James Bay.
Well, let's talk about tax fairness. Under this government, the CRA is coming hard after single moms, suspending their child tax benefits, forcing them to jump through hoops. But when KPMG was found to be running an international tax fraud scheme, the uber-rich got immediate amnesty. The Prime Minister went further. He appointed a top KPMG rep as the treasurer of the Liberal Party. Doesn't the Prime Minister understand the basic principle of conflict of interest? Why is he putting the interest of the big Liberal money machine ahead of ordinary Canadians who play by the rules, pay their fair share, and listen and work hard?
Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we put more than $1 billion towards the CRA to go after tax avoidance and tax evasion because we know that it's important for everyone to pay their fair share. That's exactly what we're committed to. But more than that, we're actually committed to making our tax system fairer. That's why one of the first things we did was lower taxes on the middle class and raise them on the wealthiest 1%, and further continue to look at ways to help single mothers, to help low-income families with the Canada Child Benefit that helps 9 out of 10 Canadian families and is reducing child poverty by 40%.
Honourable Member for Timmins, James Bay.
Really? Fairness, okay. So when the Liberals' top fundraiser, Stephen Brofman, gets named in the Paradise Papers, the Prime Minister jumps in immediately and says, hey, no investigation needed here. Why? Because he raised $250,000 for the party in 2 hours? Because it's a case of who you know in the PMO? I mean, ordinary Canadians don't get the royal treatment. Just look at how the Prime Minister treated veteran Brock Blasek, who lost his leg in Afghanistan and is fighting for a pension. If only the Prime Minister treated veterans with the same level of deference that he does for his billionaire crony pals, wouldn't we be a better country?
Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, we are committed to the well-being of veterans and their families. We're delivering on a lifetime pension commitment, which includes benefits and generous programs designed to help veterans live a full and productive life. This is in stark contrast to the previous Conservative government that for 10 years cut veterans' offices, cut frontline services, nickel and dime veterans while wrapping themselves in the flag. Indeed, even the member for Barrie Innisfil said the previous Conservative government had lost and had become disconnected with the veterans, lost a lot of the trust. It's a very fair criticism. Well, we're not just going to criticize that government, we're going to do better than they did.
It's only Tuesday, folks. It's only Tuesday. Everybody. It's only Tuesday. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
What he's doing, Mr. Speaker, is looking them in the eye and saying no after they've said yes to just about everybody else. Yes to Omar Khadr. Yes to somebody running a minister's Twitter account, $100,000. Yes to his pals when they want to take a vacation in the Caribbean. They're saying yes to everybody, but they're telling those who gave their country all they have that they're asking for too much. That is shameful. The Conservatives will hold them to account for that every time.
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
I will take no lessons from the members opposite on dealing with veterans. For 10 years, that party wrapped themselves in the flag every chance they got.
Order. Order. Let's have some adult behavior in the House, please. The Right Honourable Prime Minister has the floor.
For 10 years, the Conservative government cut veteran services, cut frontlines offices, shut down 9 veteran service centres across the country, nickel and dime the veterans while using them for photo ops, wrapping themselves in the flag every chance they get. It was shameful. We have restored respect to veterans. We're investing in benefits. We're reopening closed offices. We're supporting their families. We're doing right what for 10 years they did wrong.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
That is so patently false, Mr. Speaker. It was this government that increased support for veterans by 35%. It was our last veterans minister that ended the court process and started settlement proceedings. That this Prime Minister promised during an election campaign that they would never have to go back to court. And then he looks a hero in the eye and tells them no. That's shameful, Mr. Speaker. And he has to answer for that.
Order. The Honourable Minister of Veterans Affairs. I'm getting the impression some members would like their side to have fewer questions. And that could be arranged. So I would ask members to cooperate and pay attention to the rule against interrupting. The Honourable Minister of Veterans Affairs has the floor.
I can tell this House, Mr. Speaker, as a Newfoundlander, I've seen a lot of fog. But the pea soup fog of amnesia over on that side of the House is so thick. Let me remind that side of the House of their records for our veterans in 10 years. Let me remind them how they balanced their budgets on the backs of our veterans. How they closed offices, how they cut budgets, how they cut frontline staff. Let me tell you, we have developed a pension for life that does right.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
No, well, Mr. Speaker, it wasn't just veterans that the Prime Minister insulted in his town hall. Many Italian and Greeks have come to Canada over many decades. They've been an integral part of our nation's character ever since. That's why it was so offensive that this Prime Minister compared legitimate refugees and immigrants who have built this country with those who have fought and committed genocidal acts with ISIS. Returning ISIS fighters are not refugees. Why can't the Prime Minister tell the difference?
The Honourable Minister of Immigration.
I can assure the Leader of the
official opposition that we can't tell the difference. We are a compassionate country, we're a compassionate government that cares deeply about refugees. We doubled the number of resettled refugees, we almost quadrupled the number of privately sponsored refugees, and we're the party that has...
I'm having trouble hearing the answer, and I'd ask the member for St. Albert, Edmonton, and others not to be yelling during question period and not to be interrupting. We've had far more than enough of that, and members are going to hear things they don't like, but they're going to have to take it and listen to it. The Honourable Minister of Immigration.
Mr. Speaker, we are the party that delivered on providing protection to Yazidi women and girls in Canada. We're the party that has redoubled our efforts to make sure that we continue to provide a home for the vulnerable who are fleeing war and persecution. We're the party that has almost quadrupled the number of privately sponsored refugees. We're the party that restored refugee health care that was cut by the party opposite. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, they still don't understand there's a difference between legitimate refugees, immigrants coming to this country, and people who have fought with ISIS, Mr. Speaker. But I don't blame the Prime Minister for not getting up off the mat. And we know that he'd rather be sitting there signing autographs. So I have a suggestion for the House Leader. Maybe she can talk him into, if he likes to sign his name so much, maybe he can take out his checkbook and sign a check paying back taxpayers for the money he costs them.
Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, it's an interesting day because today we are debating the opposition's motion. The leader of the official opposition is Speaker of this place. He knows that it's question period, yet we do not hear questions rather than we hear statements from the member. If the member would like to hear a statement, I would like to remind Canadians that when it comes to the Prime Minister, whenever and wherever he travels, there are costs affiliated with his security. We respect the work of our security agencies. We will take their recommendations. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
L'honorable député.
The Honourable Member for Richmond Athabasca. Well, if they want questions, I guess I'll have to give them to the Government House Leader. Now, who traveled to a billionaire's private island? Who brought the chair of the Liberal Party and the Minister of Veterans Affairs with them? Who contravened 4 sections of the Conflict of Interest Act? And who is refusing to pay back the money that he took from Canadian taxpayers? Well, everyone knows the answer to those questions. It's simple. It's the Prime Minister. What we don't know is why he won't pay back Canadians. The Honourable Government House Leader. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As I have said many times, the former Commissioner recognized that this spending was incurred as part of the role of the Prime Minister, Mr. Speaker. I have repeated this answer several times, and I encourage the member to listen to the answer. There is spending that is associated with the Prime Minister's functions, and that is what the ex-Commissioner said. Thank you. The Honourable Member for Richmond Athabasca. Yes, illegal spending that never should have happened. Now, here's a comment that I received just yesterday from a constituent. And I'd like the Prime Minister to listen, and you too, Ms. Leader of the House. If he's really in politics to help people, he should pay the money back. Unfortunately, I need to remind the member to direct his comments through the chair. I apologize, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, here is the question that I would like them to hear on the other side of the House. If he's really in politics to help people, he should pay the money back. Canadians pay for their holidays with their hard-earned money, and the Prime Minister is not above the law. So the question that everyone is asking is, when will he pay back the money that he took from taxpayers? The Honourable Government House Leader. Mr. Speaker, as I've said, we always accept the advice of our security organizations to ensure that the Prime Minister's security is ensured. The former Commissioner said that these expenses were incurred as part of the role of the Prime Minister. The difference between the Conservatives and the government is that we respect the work of officers of Parliament. The Conservatives asked for this report to be tabled, and now that it is tabled, they are refusing to accept its conclusions. We do accept them, and we say thank you.
Member for Cowichan, Malahat, Langford.
Today, the dairy farmers of Canada are on the Hill to represent over 221,000 Canadians who depend on this sector for their livelihood and to clearly register their opposition to the
TPP. Yesterday, the government responded to my question on threats to supply management with more platitudes about consultation. This government is speaking out of both sides of its mouth. When will the Liberals listen to our hardworking farmers and stop making concessions that put our dairy industry at risk?
The Honourable Minister of Agriculture.
Speaker, this trade agreement will give significant opportunity to our farmers and ranchers right across this country. But this government fully understands the importance of the supply management system. In fact, this is the party that initiated supply management, and this is the government that will defend supply management. That's why we're sitting down with the dairy industry across this country in order to work a plan forward to make sure the dairy industry and all our agricultural sectors remain strong in this country.
Honourable Member for Essex.
And the dairy industry knows that you're selling them out. The cost of drugs in Canada is already the second highest in the world. 1 in 5 Canadians say a member of their household cannot afford prescribed medications. We know Big Pharma is pushing for restrictive intellectual property rules, which will further skyrocket drug prices. Corporate lobbies want expanded investor state provisions, allowing them to sue our government for public policy that is good for our country. Will this Liberal government stand up for Canadians and refuse a revised NAFTA that prevents us from implementing a national pharmacare program?
The Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, our government knows how proud Canadians are of our public health care system, and rightly so. This is something we always keep in mind sitting at the negotiating table. We also know that the affordability of and access to prescription drugs is an essential issue for Canadians. We are working closely with provinces, territories, and our partners to provide lower drug prices and timely access to medicine. Public health care is a key Canadian issue in the NAFTA talks.
Honourable Member for Milton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this question is for the Minister of Veterans Affairs. Now, the Code of Conduct says specifically that for gifts or sponsored travel, they are to be publicly declared as publicly declarable information and placed on the public registry. Now, I have taken a look at the registry, and I can note for the House that the Minister has not placed either of these things on the registry for his trip with the Prime Minister to the Caribbean. The accommodation clearly was subsidized, and the Code's very clear that subsidized accommodation must be reported. Why hasn't the Minister reported it, or is he having some of that pea soup amnesia?
Honourable Government House Leader.
The Prime Minister accepted responsibilities. We accepted the findings of the report. It was the opposition that demanded that the Commissioner investigate. Now that the Commissioner has investigated, the report has been tabled. They refuse to accept its conclusions. Mr. Speaker, the Conservatives are exactly the same party when they were in government, always undermining offices of Parliament, Mr. Speaker. We committed to Canadians that we would do government differently, and that's exactly why we respect offices of Parliament. We respect the work they do, and that's why once the report was tabled, the Prime Minister made himself available to the media to ensure that he could answer all questions. He's also traveled the country, engaging directly with Canadians at public town halls.
Honourable Member for Milton. Order.
Mr. Speaker, there's still an obligation under the Code of Conduct to make reports available to the public. The Prime Minister didn't do it either. The motion this morning is clear. We're asking for some holes to be plugged so that we don't have this possibility where the Prime Minister decides that he doesn't have to pay for his consequences. And that's just simply wrong. So, Mr. Speaker, I have a simple question. Will the Prime Minister person up and do the right thing and pay these expenses?
Honourable Government House Leader.
Speaker, as I've said, immediately after the report was tabled, the Prime Minister accepted responsibilities and accepted its findings, as every leader should, Mr. Speaker. This Prime Minister accepted responsibilities, made himself available to answer any questions. Unlike the previous government, Prime Minister Stephen Harper's Conservative government, when they would undermine offices of Parliament, Mr. Speaker, we will not take lessons from the Conservatives. On this side of the House, we respect offices of Parliament, we respect the work they do, and we thank them for their hard work. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Lévis-Daubignières. Mr. Speaker, in this House, it is our duty to respect the Conflict of Interest Act. No one is exempt, and that includes the Prime Minister himself. In light of the former Ethics Commissioner's scathing report, we can say loud and clear that the Prime Minister deliberately tried to circumvent federal law and abuse the system by charging his family travel to taxpayers. Mr. Speaker, can the Prime Minister tell us if he will pay back Canadians for the cost of his family trip? The Honourable Government House Leader. Mr. Speaker, the former Commissioner recognized that these expenses were incurred as part of the role of Prime Minister. The opposition called for a report and an investigation, but when the Commissioner tabled her report, we accepted the conclusions. The Prime Minister took responsibility, and as is always the case, the Prime Minister did what he had to do, but the Commissioner recognized that the other expenses were incurred as part of his role as Prime Minister.
Thornhill.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberal House Leader answering for the Prime Minister says he accepts the Ethics Commissioner's report. The Liberal House Leader asks why the opposition doesn't accept the report. Well, Mr. Speaker, we fully accept the Commissioner's findings that the Prime Minister broke the law. What we don't accept is that the Prime Minister is attempting to dodge the consequences. Other ministers have repaid taxpayers for their ethical lapses. Why won't he?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, as I have said, we fully respect the Commissioner's report. The Prime Minister has accepted responsibility. I encourage members opposite to also accept the fact that the ex-Commissioner did state that these are costs that are incurred with the functions of the Prime Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Port Moody Coquitlam.
BC and First Nation governments.
The Honourable Member for Port Moody Coquitlam, I'd ask him to restart.
In November, the Fisheries Minister committed to meet with BC and First Nation governments to discuss moving open net salmon farms off the wild salmon migration route. Months later, they're still waiting. Last week, the Prime Minister unbelievably said no ocean protection plan unless the Kinder Morgan pipeline is built. This is unacceptable. This morning, the government committed to considering impacts on First Nations under a revised Fisheries Act. How can the Liberals justify approving Kinder Morgan after using Harper's gutted assessment process, which failed to adequately consult First Nations?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Fisheries.
Our government supports a new vision for environmentally sustainable aquaculture, and we are working with the province and Indigenous communities to consider all options to ensure that we protect our marine environment. While the industry generates $2 billion in economic activity, approximately $600 million in labour income, we understand that a clean environment is the greatest economic driver. It's important that we get this right because sustainable aquaculture provides year-round jobs, paying thousands of Canadians, including more than 50 First Nations, many of whom live in rural coastal communities. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Nanaimo Ladysmith.
Come on, really? At his Nanaimo town hall, the Prime Minister said he's holding BC hostage to the Kinder Morgan pipeline. He said the Oceans Protection Plan, which he'd been bragging will fix abandoned vessels, oil spills, and bulk commercial anchorages, won't proceed unless bitumen oil tankers do. But yesterday in committee, the Transport Minister said the exact opposite. So who's right? When will the Prime Minister finally stand up for coastal communities instead of blackmailing them?
Honourable Minister of Transport.
Mr. Speaker, nothing could be further from the truth. The Oceans Protection Plan is a world-leading plan that will bring marine safety to levels in Canada that are not seen anywhere else in the world. Yes, we are committed to coastal communities. We are committed to abandoned vessel removal. We are committed to restoring the southern resident killer whales. We are committed to having a faster response in case of any problems along our coastal areas. This is a program that the people of BC, the coastal people of BC, are welcoming. This is something that has never been done in any other country.
The Honourable Member for Saint Laurent. Mr. Speaker, the first week of February is Eating Disorders Awareness Week. the research shows the prevalence of eating disorders is from 2 to 3%. According to StatsCan, around 1 million Canadians meet the criteria for having an eating disorder. And eating disorders are the leading cause of death among the mentally ill at 1 in 10. Can the Minister of Health tell the House what steps the government is taking to support people with eating disorders, their families, and support networks? The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to thank my colleague and the member for St. Laurent for her outstanding work and for giving me the opportunity to mention what commitments this government has made to help people with eating disorders. These are serious mental illnesses that require medical attention. That's why this government has invested $5 million in Budget 2017 to provide support, mental health support all across the country. This investment will make a real difference in the lives of Canadians, men and women. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, in his first few months in office, the Prime Minister spent $4.3 billion on projects outside of Canada. He's spent $10 million on Omar Khadr. He spent millions of dollars moving his staff to Ottawa, promoting his tweets, building an ice rink, and even cardboard cutouts of himself. But last week we learned that the Prime Minister will spare no expense on self-promotion, but he thinks that veterans are asking for too much. When will the Prime Minister apologize for making a promise to veterans he knew he would never keep?
The Honourable Minister of Veterans Affairs.
As many on this side of the House know, I relish the opportunity to compare the record of this government in 2.5 years on our veterans to the 10 years by the previous government. To say that budgets weren't cut, we know they were cut. Why? Because we restored them. To say that offices weren't closed, we know they were closed. Why? Because we reopened them. To say that veterans weren't ignored, we know they were ignored. Why? Because we listened to them. We have spent $10 billion of new money on our veterans in 2.5 years, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Yorkton Melville.
Our veterans have been blatantly betrayed by this Prime Minister breaking his word. Recently, he told our veterans they are asking for more than we can afford. Yet he charged taxpayers $200,000 for his illegal vacation. And the Minister of Veterans Affairs joined the Prime Minister on that illegal trip. It's a sad day when the Minister tags along on the Prime Minister's illegal vacation, blowing $200,000 and later telling veterans who suffered injuries fighting for our country that they're asking too much. Does this Minister not agree with our veterans that the $200,000 the PM used for his illegal vacation would have been better spent on
Honourable Minister of Veterans Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, we made a promise to veterans. We made a promise to veterans that they had heard for a long time. In 2006, all sides of this House sat down with veterans and decided on a new Veterans Charter. They decided that it would be a living document, that it would be something that would provide for our veterans in the future. For 10 years, the previous government sat on that document. They did nothing. They did nothing but cut. They did nothing but cut budgets, cut offices, and ignore the voices of our veterans. We have invested $10 billion.
The Honourable Member for Charlebourg, Haute-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, when the Prime Minister says our veterans, my former comrades in arms, are asking for too much, it's shameful. It's awful to be lied to in the face by your own government in your own country. The Prime Minister is taking our vets to court after promising not to and signed an agreement, an out-of-court settlement, with a terrorist. Why does the Prime Minister have so much contempt for our veterans? The Honourable Minister of Veterans Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, we have provided $10 billion in new money for our veterans, for veterans' offices, for the budgets, for the lives of our veterans. Let me just, there are so many examples that they give me when I walk into this House of a retired major with 25 years of service with 100% disability assessment who will now receive nearly $9,000 a month in both pain and suffering compensation and income replacement. That is not a betrayal. That is a commitment in action, finally, to our veterans.
Honourable member for Barrie Innisfil.
Simply not true, Mr. Speaker. Simply not true. The Prime Minister made a campaign promise to Canada's veterans. Using veterans, including those in his caucus as a backdrop, the Prime Minister promised that he would immediately restore lifelong pensions and that no veteran should have to fight their government in court. We now know that he used all of these veterans, including his caucus, simply as political pawns. While racking up billions in debt, giving billions to the UN, billions away outside Canada for his pet projects, and to Omar Khadr, how can he justify saying to our veterans that he's asking more than he can give them?
Honourable Minister of Veterans Affairs.
And while they cut budgets, ignored voices, and closed offices, let me tell you about someone else, a retired major with 25 years of service, 20% disabled, which basically means they may have a loss of hearing or perhaps a bad knee or ankle. They will now receive over $70,000 in pain and suffering benefits alone, not to mention education and training benefits to help them transition to a civilian life. That is not a prop, Mr. Speaker. That is a real person affected by our new investments for our veterans.
The honourable member for Jonquière. Mr. Speaker, since the Liberals took office, over 193,000 public servants have suffered from the Trudeau government's failure to fix problems with the Phoenix pay system. 193,000. That's over 73% of the total number of federal workers. But that's not stopping the Liberals from passing the buck to their predecessors. But it won't be the Conservatives who solve the problem. When is the government going to take ownership and put an end to this financial fiasco? I have to remind the honourable member from Jonquière that we don't mention the names of members. We refer to their titles. The Honourable President of the Treasury Board.
We have tremendous respect for our public service. We have in Canada one of the best public services anywhere in the world. Their work is valuable. That is why they deserve to be paid on time and accurately. We recognize the challenges of the Phoenix pay system. We also recognize that the cause was the failure of the Conservative government to maintain the existing system until a new system was working. To achieve a little surplus on the eve of an election, they cut 700 pay advisors, Mr. Speaker, and that is costing the public service today, and we're going to fix this.
Allah.
Order.
Like I was saying, we're just going to hear things I don't like. And we have to hear those things whether we like them or not.
The honourable member for Sherbrooke. Mr. Speaker, get this. A Canadian mining exploration company doing business in Mongolia declares profits of $2.1 billion at a company with one part-time employee based in Luxembourg. All with CRA's blessing, if you can believe it. The cat's out of the bag. The minister is an accessory to shady tax schemes. In the fight against tax cheats, why is the minister part of the problem instead of the solution? The Honourable Minister of National Revenue. Mr. Speaker, our government committed to fight tax avoidance and evasion abroad in order to create a fair system for all Canadians. This is a worldwide issue. That's why Canada is working in close cooperation with all our international partners, including the OECD, in order to improve information sharing. Our investments in the past two budgets have made it possible to assess risks associated with multinational corporations doing business abroad. But I can't discuss the particulars of any specific case. The Honourable Member for Mégantic-l'Érable. Mr. Speaker, the Trans-Pacific Partnership is an unprecedented opportunity for the Canadian agriculture and agri-food sector. But unlike the Liberals, we believe farmers should have been included in the discussions before the deal was inked, not after. For 16 days now, the Minister of Agriculture has been absent from the discussions, and the government has been tight-lipped about mitigation measures for dairy, egg, and poultry farmers. The previous Conservative government earmarked $4.3 billion for farmers. Dairy producers are here in Ottawa today. What does the minister have to say to them? The Honourable Minister of Agriculture.
I appreciate my honourable colleague's question, and I'm very pleased the dairy farmers are here today. In fact, Mr. Speaker, I sit down with the dairy farmers, all supply sectors, on numerous occasions. And when this CPTPP has been signed, I'm sitting down and discussing the path forward, just to make sure, Mr. Speaker, that our supply management that this party put in place and this government will defend on a united front, I might add, in order to make sure that the supply management and the agricultural sector continues to thrive in this country.
Honourable member for Foothills.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberals are carrying out an ideological attack on Canadian agriculture. Warning labels on dairy and meat products, a Canadian food guide that discourages people from eating healthy animal protein and dairy. And not one single farmer or processor was allowed to give any input on these decisions. The Liberals are devastating Canadian businesses and farm families on data that is based on bad science. Will the Minister of Agriculture stand up for our farmers and stop this attack on Canadian agriculture?
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Our government is committed to protecting the health and safety of Canadians and supporting an environment that makes healthy choices the easy choice. For over 70 years, Mr. Speaker, Canada's Food Guide has been Canada's most trusted source of information on healthy eating. As a part of the healthy eating strategy, work to update Canada's Food Guide is well underway, and we are engaging with Canadians, experts, and stakeholders from all across the country. The most recent public consultation on the new Food Guide concluded late August, and the results of these will be published in the near future. And I also look forward to meeting with the industry as well, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much.
The Honourable Member for Mégantic-l'Érable. Mr. Speaker, once again, the Agriculture Minister has been sidelined after the Dairy Farm Investment Program fiasco, which was bungled and left 80% of farmers high and dry, after the Health Committee refused to hear from producers and processors on the new food guide, after 16 days of inaction around mitigation measures. Are there any members representing agriculture on the other side? Will they stand up and demand concrete steps to support dairy, egg, and poultry producers?
Agriculture.
Mr. Speaker, and I appreciate my honourable colleague's question because it gives me an opportunity to indicate just in fact what we have done. We put a $350 million program in place in order that $250 million would be put to the dairy farmers in order to make sure they remain on the cutting edge, Mr. Speaker. And I can tell my honourable colleague and this House, Mr. Speaker, that $25 million of that have already been approved. What it is doing, Mr. Speaker, is making sure that the supply management sector in the dairy industry remains strong and on the cutting edge. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Vaughan Woodbridge.
Mr. Speaker, with the new and growing economy moving toward a more knowledge-based digital focus, we need to make sure our future talent pool has the skills needed to compete and excel on the world stage.
Feel that passion for learning is vital to our collective success. Can the Minister of Innovation, Science and Economic Development please explain what steps this government is taking to ensure our young people are ready for the digital global economy of today, tomorrow, and beyond?
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the member from Vaughan Woodbridge for his question. We've discussed on several occasions the importance of coding, digital skills, and digital literacy, and of course his hard work as well, as the opposite member has said. As he knows, these are fundamental skills for the jobs of today and the future, from video game developers to farming to forestry to mining. That's why we introduced and launched a $50 million Can Code initiative. This will help up to 1 million students and teachers across the country to learn how to code, Mr. Speaker. We're investing in our #1 resource, our people.
The Honourable Member for Abbotsford.
Last week, exactly 1 day before World Wetlands Day, the Liberals killed the National Wetland Conservation Fund. Meanwhile, the minister received $40 million to spend on policy, communication, and engagement. Another example of Liberals talking the talk but not walking the walk. They claim to be champions of the environment, but then cut essential environmental programs to spend more money on photographers and press releases. Will the minister now reverse this terrible decision? Will she stand up for Canada's wetlands?
The Minister of Environment.
Thank
you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to thank the member opposite for his strong support for the environment. I absolutely support standing up for wetlands and watersheds, and that's why we're spending $70.5 million over 5 years to protect them. We've also invested in the Great Lakes, Lake Winnipeg, St. Lawrence watersheds. We understand that healthy watersheds are vital to the ecological, economic, and cultural well-being of our peoples, and wetlands are crucial to a healthy watershed. We're going to continue to work together with the communities to ensure the health of our watersheds.
The Honourable Member for Berthier-Maskinongé. Mr. Speaker, it's quite something watching Conservatives today in the House proclaiming their support for our supply management system, when it was the former Conservative government who started selling it down the river with the TPP and CETA. And the current Liberal government is following in their footsteps. Mr. Speaker, farmers are sick and tired of the hypocrisy. They deserve better. When is the government finally going to stand up and defend supply management and Canadian farmers?
Agriculture. Merci, Monsieur le Président, and I appreciate
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Next question. The fact is of the matter, as I said many times in this House, we are the party that fought to implement supply management, and we're the government that's going to defend it, and we've done that by action, Mr. Speaker, with the program, innovation program for the dairy sector. The TPP gives opportunity for all the agricultural sectors right across this country, a significant opportunity. And also with that, we fully understand how important supply management is for this country. We have and will continue to make sure that we fully support the supply management program. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for London North Centre.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. UNICEF has observed an overall global decline in female genital mutilation, but not all countries have made progress and decline has been uneven. UNICEF considers that while current progress is positive, the decline isn't keeping up with increasing population growth. If trends continue, the number of girls and women undergoing FGM will rise significantly over the next 15 years. Could the Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of International Development and la Francophonie inform this House on how Canada is addressing this issue in developing countries? Thank you.
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, our government strongly condemns female genital mutilation, FGM, and other forms of violence which affect 200 million women and girls worldwide. I'd like to thank my colleague from London North Centre for his question and his advocacy around human rights issues. Today in Benin, the Minister of International Development and the Francophonie announced $3 million towards a project that will reduce FGM and other forms of gender-based violence. Mr. Speaker, I want to emphasize that women's rights are human rights, and we will continue to support education and awareness that prevent FGM and support survivors. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Dawson, Swan River, Neepawa.
Mr. Speaker, the Minister has to answer for her decision to eliminate the National Wetlands Conservation Fund. Since 2014, the fund has supported projects that protected and enhanced thousands of hectares of wetlands. Wetlands are vital for sequestering carbon, improving water quality, creating fish and wildlife habitat, protecting endangered species, and managing watersheds. Mr. Speaker, conservation groups across Canada are outraged by what the Minister did and now know that these Liberals are phony environmentalists. Why would this government eliminate the National Wetlands Conservation Fund, which has delivered such important benefits for Canada's environment?
Minister of Environment.
I'd like to thank the member opposite for his long-standing advocacy as a conservationist. Let me be 100% clear. We always will stand up for our environment. We will always stand up for our watersheds. We have made significant investments. We will continue to do so. We have other things we also need to do, which is making sure that we support Indigenous community-based monitoring in the oil sands. We need to address species at risk, including the recovery of caribou. We need to support other conservation programs. But I encourage those that receive support under this program that they continue to look for other opportunities with our government to continue their good work.
Hear, hear. The Honourable Member for Pierre Boucher, Les Patriotes Verchères. Mr. Speaker, right in the middle of a by-election, the Prime Minister made a commitment to farmers in Saguenay-Lac-Saint-Jean. He said, "We will make no concessions on supply management." Today we know, under the TPP, he sacrificed 3.25% of the dairy sector and opened a breach in the egg and poultry sectors. Did he decide to renege on his by-election promise, or did he deliberately lie to farmers? The Honourable Minister of International Trade. I'd like to thank my colleague for his question, and I'd like to salute the dairy farmers who are here today and who I had the opportunity to meet with today. We are the party who has always defended supply management. The Prime Minister has always done so, and we will always do so. Mr. Speaker, we understand the concerns of producers, and that is why 2 days after the TPP was announced, I met with 100-odd farmers in Montreal. We responded to their concerns. We will continue to discuss the impacts with them, and we will continue that discussion because this is an essential part of the Canadian economy.
Okay.
The Honourable Member for Mirabel. Mr. Speaker, in a by-election, the Prime Minister promised farmers there would be no concessions on supply management under the TPP. 3 months later, the government rolled over when it came time to defend our dairy, egg, and poultry farmers. Back home, we have a word for that. When someone says one thing to your face and when he has something to gain by it and then does precisely the opposite. What word does the Trade Minister have? Because we call that a liar. Order. Order. I would ask the member to be careful with his choice of words and not to use words that may cause disorder in the House. The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, well, first of all, I'd like to salute the dairy farmers who are here again. I think all members on this side of the House recognize the work of our farmers, the value of dairy farmers, and that is why, Mr. Speaker, 2 days after the TPP was announced, I met with farmers in Montreal. We will continue the discussion. We will continue with the Agriculture Minister defending the interests of the dairy sector, and we recognize its importance to the Canadian economy. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Members, the presence in the gallery of the Honourable Rob Fleming, Minister of Education for the province of British Columbia.
The Honourable Member for Berthier-Masquinongé. On a point of order. Is it working? Do you hear me? Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In a moment, I am going to ask for unanimous consent for a motion regarding question period, outlined in Standing Order 37 and detailed in Chapter 11 of Bosque and Gagnon.
You will remember that even during the darkest days of the Mike Duffy scandal, when the leader of the official opposition, my friend from Outremont, was delivering a devastating blow after blow to then Prime Minister Stephen Harper and his government, the Prime Minister at the time still answered the NDP leader's questions, even the tough ones. But the Prime Minister, current Prime Minister, has started cherry-picking which leader questions he's willing to answer in the House of Commons. Hier et aujourd'hui.
Yesterday and today. It seems that this is a point of debate. I would ask, order, order, order. I would ask the Honourable Member to ask her question. Bosque and Gagnon indicates that if the responsibility of government... I'm sorry, but apparently the interpretation is not working. If you could please restart.